Okay, baka kasi ako
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me and I am clear. My audio is clear. Okay, so once again, good morning, everyone. In the continued celebration of the 109th CEAT founding anniversary, we welcome you to the second installation of the CEAT webinar series. And this time, it will be hosted by the Industrial Engineering Department. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to call on the Chair of the Industrial Engineering Department, Assistant Professor Kathleen L. Baldoz, for the opening remarks.
Okay, thank you, Alan. So to all our beloved CEAT constituents, faculty, staff, students, to our distinguished guests, and to our speaker in today's webinar, good morning. I am pleased to welcome you all to day 2 of the webinar series of the 109th founding anniversary of our beloved CEAT with the theme Future-Proofing Communities through Engineering Innovations. So as part of this year's celebration, the webinar series gave us the opportunity to present on one of the finished research projects of the department, the Department of Industrial Engineering. So we at the department are happy to share this to you, and we are glad that one of those, which is very much related to our theme, will be presented today by one of our distinguished faculty in industrial engineering. So for today's webinar, our speaker is going to discuss one of the outputs of the Human Systems Engineering Program and the Management Systems Engineering Program, known to us as the HSEP and MSEP. So the department really envisioned that this program should be able to help its mother unit, the UPLB, to continuously improve its work and management systems, provide an avenue for students to conduct research and do extension researches and projects that may help improve the condition of living of the general public, and more especially and more importantly, the UPLB. So without further delay, I will now give the floor again to to Engineer Alan Marquez Mercado, who is also one of our faculty, for the introduction of our beloved speaker and the presentation of details regarding this webinar. So I'm confident that everybody will learn a lot from this webinar and will inspired by the works of the department in general. So thank you very much for attending and have a great day ahead.
Explained earlier, today we will be discussing one of the finished studies or research studies rather from the Industrial Engineering Department. And as a discipline, IE does dwell in different interdisciplinary studies. It's a melting pot of different sciences wherein the focus is how humans interact with systems. And with that being said, Assistant Professor Baldoz also highlighted some of the major fields, including management systems engineering, which is very relevant, especially nowadays, because it is, by definition, the application of any engineering design to systems comprised of decision makers, information, several organizational structures, technology, and particularly human interactions. and with the vision of the department to be able to contribute to UPLB and its improvement, management systems engineering does play and can play an important role in improving and providing helpful input into any system within UPLB. And that will be the focus as well for today's research study. Just to give a background, the entire project was a part of IED's Management Systems Engineering program for the assessment of the manual document processing within the university. And the project was divided or subdivided into several parts. And today we will be tackling the specific part established to provide focus and evaluation as well as assessment on the document processing system of the accounting office and the cashier's office of UPLB. And who better to take us through this study than one of our distinguished faculty members. So to introduce her, our speaker today is an assistant professor in the Department of Industrial Engineering. But prior to being a faculty member, she worked as a process engineer for Entech Precision Philippines Incorporated. She finished her bachelor's degree in industrial engineering at UPLB, acquired her master's degree in industrial engineering from UP Diliman, and just recently completed her doctorate program in engineering at Kyushu University in Fukuoka, Japan. To add to her list of achievements, she was also given the CEAT Outstanding Junior Faculty Award in 2017. She was also involved in several UPLB projects concerning process streamlining and efficiency improvement. And she was also a part of the group of UPLB IED faculty members who assessed and experimented on the effect of hand tractor vibrations. Currently, her research interests are under human factors and ergonomics with a focus on the physiological responses of humans to hand-arm vibration. Let us welcome today our speaker, Assistant Professor Josefa Angeli Revilla.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Should I start?
Yes, ma'am, you may start.
Okay. Let me just share my screen. Kita niyo ba? Tsaka rinig niyo ako? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. So, okay, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for attending the CEAT webinar series. Today, I will be presenting one of our projects entitled Assessment of the Document Processing System of the UPLB Accounting Office through Value Analysis and Process Streamlining. So this project was conducted and accomplished in 2014 to 2015, together with Assistant Professor Haroldine Layawin, who is our project coordinator, myself as the project leader, and some of our IE junior and senior students and staff. This project was also supported by Ma'am Joanne Mendoza, the chief accountant during that period, and also by the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Administration. So to give you a brief background of how this study started or how this project started, back in 2014, prior to the development and implementation of the university-wide information systems, like the SAIS, UIS, HRIS, SMIS, documents and processes, or majority of the documents and processes are performed and accomplished manually. This creates a broader window or higher chance of creating human errors and mistakes, which can lead to document processing delays. Okay, so the main goal of this project is to assess manual document processing systems in various offices in UPLB. Again, the project was subdivided into several parts involving various offices, like the accounting office, cashier's office, supply and property management office. For this report, okay, I will be focusing on the document processing system of the UPLB accounting office. Also, this entire project was part of the IED's Management Systems Engineering Program, or MSEP. IED's MSEP was established in 2012, as mentioned earlier by Assistant Professor Baldos. It has accomplished approximately 8 projects focusing on efficiency improvement of various offices, incoming quality control system and centralized warehouse system of SPMO, and process streamlining of the UPLB accounting and cashier's office. MSEP's mission is to play a major role in meeting the public, private, and government organization needs in developing and implementing the management systems needed to provide for the timely delivery of high quality and cost-effective output. Its vision is to be a self-sustaining program that continuously helps UPLB in improving its management systems, in providing an avenue for students to conduct research, and in conducting research extensions and projects that may help improve the condition of the general public. Now, MSEP and HSEP of the IE department are created not just to serve the university, but also to help and assist the general public and other private institutions in improving their system or processes. So if you want to know more about MSEP and HSEP of the IE department, you can just visit the IED website. Okay, so focusing on the UPLB accounting office's document processing system, the study was initiated in 2014. So back then, there were feedbacks and experiences indicating the presence of document processing delays. So after several meetings and office visits, it was observed that indeed AO experiences long document processing lead time. So theoretically, long document processing lead time is caused by the performance of non-value added activities. These NVA activities are activities that do not contribute to the production or manufacturing of a specific good. Now, in this case, these NVA activities are activities that do not contribute to the processing of a specific document. Also, NVA activities are commonly observed not just in office setup, but also in the manufacturing industry. There are two kinds of NVA activities, the essential and the non-essential NVAs. For the essential NVAs, these are activities that do not contribute to the production, but are important for the operators, workers, or employees. Some examples include toilet break, water break, transferring of documents. Meanwhile, non-essential NVAs are activities that do not contribute to the production or manufacturing of a specific good and should not be important to the employee or worker. And several examples include surfing the internet, chatting, or texting. The main goal of the project or this study is to minimize these NVA activities to reduce the document processing lead time or the document processing delays. Okay, so 4 sub-studies were created to address the main objective, which is again to reduce the NVA activities leading to document processing delays. These 4 studies were done simultaneously and independently. So the 4 sub-studies are streamlining and process improvement of document process flow, validating and updating the standard processing time of each document type in the accounting office, constructing layout alternatives to improve document flow, and lastly, improvement of the utilization of employees in one section, in one AO section. So for this report, I will only be focusing on sub-studies 1 and 3. So sub-study 1 is the streamlining and process improvement of document process flow. Sub-study 3 is constructing layout alternatives to improve the document flow. Okay, so to further validate the initial observation about the document processing delay in the office, process familiarization was performed. So document process flows, flow diagram of each document, demand of each document, employees assigned for each document were all listed. Elemental tasks were also listed. Routing sheets were distributed and filled up. Floor, equipment, and facility were all measured. Now, these raw data were used to compute for the standard processing time of each elemental task. They were also used to compute for the actual processing time and queue time within the office. These computed values or these baseline values were used as basis for the 4 sub-studies. Now let's go to sub-study 1, which is streamlining and process improvement of the document process flow. By definition, process streamlining is a way of polishing the process flow of documents, information, products, or services through reducing or completely eliminating redundant processes and non-value-added activities. Process streamlining is done mostly through process automation or employee awareness. So from the baseline values gathered earlier, it was found that one document in the accounting office is estimated to be processed at around 4.5 days. The document processing lead time is composed of the document's queuing time, the document's processing time, which is composed of value-added and non-value-added activities, the document's waiting time, and the document's moving time. Also, the computed standard processing time per document was 10.47 minutes. So the standard processing time was computed using the theoretical standard time formula, which is the normal time multiplied by the allowance factor. The actual processing time per document was roughly 4.5 working days. So the actual processing time was the processing time taken from the routing sheet. So essentially, we distributed a routing sheet to each employee. So they will input the start and end time, the document type, and the number of documents that they were able to process. So from those information, we were able to gather or to compute for the actual processing time of each document. We also found, or we also computed that the expected office capacity is greater than the daily demand. Now, by definition, the effective capacity of an office or of a company is the capacity that is expected to be achieved given the current operating constraints. In contrast, the actual office capacity that we computed is less than the daily demand. Now, the actual office capacity was computed using the actual processing time. And by definition, actual capacity is the capacity computed using the actual processing time, inclusive of the NVA activities. Okay, so from this information, what can be inferred? Well, firstly, a substantial portion of the total document processing lead time is allotted to NVA activities such as queue time, wait time, transfer time. In this context, queue time is when documents are waiting to be processed. Meanwhile, waiting time is when documents are waiting to be transferred after processing. Transferring time is the time to transfer documents from one station to the next. Secondly, a small percentage of the total processing time is allotted to non-essential NVA tasks. So given these NVA activities that were present in the office, the computed actual office capacity is not meeting the daily demand. And this is, again, evident on what I showed earlier, what we computed before, that the actual office capacity is less than the demand. This simply means that your supply, or the office supply, or the office resources is less than the demand. This leads to long document processing lead time or document processing delay. However, if the NVA activities that I mentioned earlier are all eliminated, the current office resources should be enough to meet the daily demand. So what are the current office resources? These are the number of employees, for example, the number of workstation, computers. So the existing office resources should be enough to meet the demand. However, they are not meeting their demand because of the presence of the NVA activities. So this one is evident in the computation that we got from the expected office capacity, which showed to be greater than the daily demand, meaning that the supply or the office resources are actually greater than the demand. So these are the information that we found, that we gathered from sub-study 1. Now let's proceed to sub-study 3. Sub-study 3 is constructing layout alternatives to improve the document flow. Now this is the existing accounting office layout as of 2014. As you can see here, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but this is where the chief accountant's table is, somewhere in the side. And then in front, the releasing and receiving section. And then in the middle is the payroll section. And then somewhere in the right side is the fund control and pre-audit section. Okay, we considered the workflow of the documents in AO. So there are 5 workflows that we discovered. So workflow for document 1, 2, 3 and the other remaining documents have similar process flows. So let me show you the workflow of document one. So this is the workflow of the first document. For example, after being received in the office, it goes to workstation 2 for checking of mathematical computations, validity of claims, and supporting documents. Then it goes to workstation 3 for analyzing, obligating, recording, and journalizing. Then workstation 4 for indexing, recording all the details of the suppliers and creditors. To workstation 5, certification of tax withheld. Then to the chief accountant's office or table for certifying fund availability and signing of documents. Finally, to the releasing station for releasing. Okay. For the second document, it's quite similar. So after receiving, it goes to the second workstation for recording name of claimant and details of travel. To workstation 3 for checking of mathematical computations, validity of claims, and supporting documents. To workstation 4 for analyzing, obligating, recording, and journalizing. Then to the chief accountant's office for final checking of signatories, certifying fund availability, and signing of documents. And then lastly, to the releasing station. Now, the workflow of documents 3 and 4 are quite similar to this one, to the workflow of document 2. So this is the workflow of document 3. As you can see, after being received, it goes to this part of the office, the right side of the office, and it goes back to the left side of the office for the signatory of the chief accountant, and then goes back to the releasing station. This is almost the same with workflow of document 4, as seen here in the figure. And then this is the workflow of the remaining documents. Basically, after receiving, they go to the workstation 2 for analyzing, obligating, recording, and journalizing. Then to the chief accountant's office for certifying fund availability and signing of documents. And then finally to the releasing station. So we discovered that the flow of documents, or the flow diagrams of these documents are commonly go through the 4 areas within the office. So firstly, in the receiving area, then in the pre-audit, then to the pre-audit and fund control area, to the chief accountant's table, and then finally to the releasing station. So in all of those documents, this is the common observation that we got. Okay. After these findings in sub-study 1 and 3, let me explain to you some of the root causes that we found, probable root causes of delays in document processing. So as I mentioned earlier, there are several NVA activities observed. For example, long document queuing and waiting time within the office, the transferring of documents from one station to the next, and the performance of non-essential NVA tasks. Okay, so by definition, a root cause analysis is a systematic way of determining the cause or causes of non-conformance, or essentially the root cause, in the process or system. Sometimes it is called YY analysis. So for the first NVA activity, the document queuing and waiting within the office, the last level root cause was that the person in charge bulks up the documents to save effort from moving away from workstation just to transport the document to the next processor. So in this case, the employee may be saving up his or her effort and time by not walking away from his or her workstation, but unconsciously, this is being translated to document processing delay, since the documents are just sitting around their table and not being processed or transferred to the next workstation. So secondly, the transferring of documents from one station to the next. The last level root cause was that document flow and office layout do not complement. Here, we found that the workstations that are significantly interacting with each other are placed far away from each other, as seen in the sub-study 3. So that's why it leads to longer transferring time or longer walking time for the employees. For the third NVA activity, the performance of non-essential NVA tasks, there are three last level root causes. So the first two, requesting units are not familiar with the document processing flows, and there are instances that the submitting units are have deficiencies in the submitted document. So you may want to ask, how did these two root causes affect or influence the document processing delay? Well, if the requesting unit, if the requesting units are unfamiliar with the document processing flow, they and if they are submitting incomplete documents, then these requested documents are most likely to be returned to their office. And this going back and forth of documents from the requesting unit to the accounting office is already considered or already contributed to the document processing delay. So the third one is that AO personnel use their mind, eyes, and hands for longer hours. Now, perhaps this root cause may have resulted to the personnel to walk around the office because they want to relax or they want to relieve themselves. They want to relieve themselves from whole day of working, from stress, from whole day of working or sitting. So that the walking around within the office, of course, is considered a performance of non-essential NVA tasks. So here are some control measures to address the root causes that were found. Firstly, is to implement a document movement interval system. So this is a provision that requires all employees to transport their finished documents to its next processor every hour, or I think every specific time interval, regardless of the quantity. It means that instead of bulking up the documents before transferring, they can transfer the documents based on a specific time interval, or they can transfer the documents right after or immediately after processing, immediately after they finish processing the documents. This can reduce the queue time and the waiting time of the documents. Secondly, to create a strategic office layout that can minimize the distance traveled during document transport. Now, if you see, this is the suggested layout. The pre-audit and the fund control section, which is placed in the middle, initially they were located here in the right side of the office. So we suggested that these two processes be placed near the releasing and receiving and near the chief accountant's office, since we found that there's a significant interaction between or among these three processes. So they should be placed near each other. In turn, this can minimize the transferring time and the distance traveled by the document. Next is implementation of online generated forms and checklists and utilization of office email for information dissemination. It is suggested, or we suggested, that the forms and checklists should be available in the AO website for download. So the requesting units can just visit the website and check the requirements of the document. They can initially confirm if the documents that they will be submitting are complete or filled up properly or correctly. Therefore, if the documents being submitted to the AO are complete, then the added time used by the going back and forth of documents will be eliminated. In turn, this can reduce or this can shorten the document processing lead time. Next is the implementation of office exercises and IREST. This may include arm and wrist exercises, shoulder exercises, finger exercises, mainly upper limb exercises, because the employees are constantly sitting and using their upper limb for writing, using the computer. It is also suggested that the employees be enrolled to yoga classes and Zumba sessions. I think right now this is already being implemented. We in CEAT, I believe that we have a weekly or twice a week Zumba session for our faculty and administrative staff. So I think this can help the employees from relieving the stresses that they feel during the entire day of working. But this can help them relax as well. Okay, so for the overall improvement, with the proposed recommendations that I mentioned earlier and some other minor suggestions that I was not able to include, the implementation of these steps can lead to about 60% efficiency improvement or reduction of document processing delay. The 60% was meticulously calculated by our group, but using the data that we had early on, but I was not able to show all the data, all the information, since majority of them are private information and cannot be shared publicly. So I was not able to share everything. Also, upon speaking with Ma'am Joanne, she confirmed that there were several recommendations adopted by the office. So firstly, the use of checklists for requirements, which they were attaching to the vouchers before distribution. Also, the online generation of forms. And aside from that, I think they also included document tracking in the office, so they will know where the documents are being processed in their office. Okay, so that is the end of IED's presentation at the CEAT webinar series. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Assistant Professor Revilla, for your complete assessment and discussion of your study. As we can see, IE is not only bound to the traditional manufacturing environment, but is greatly applicable in various human systems as well. It was also very interesting to see how paramount it was to first define and understand the system in order to initiate any improvement that we intend to do with it. Especially in a system where human coordination, collaboration, and interactions are fundamental, a systemic approach will be vital in ensuring that the study will be an all-inclusive and comprehensive one. And as we have seen from the discussion, it is also not only important that we act upon the system, but also provide improvements that will benefit the employees' productivity and occupational safety and health. After all, the system is only as good as the human factor that is involved in it. Okay, and now we would like to proceed to the question and answer portion, or the open forum for today's webinar series. Okay, I hope you can hear me clearly. So, Assistant Professor Revilla, can we start with the question and answer questions for today, rather?
Yes. You may start.
So we have a first question. Some of our participants are curious on the data gathering process. So can you shed some more light on the gathering process for the time study data that was involved within the study?
Can you see my screen? So this is where the data gathering part was considered, no? So initially, para makuha muna namin yung standard time, kailangan maging, like what Alan said, we have to be familiar with the process. So hindi kami familiar noon sa process ng accounting office. That's why tiningnan namin isa-isa per document, tiningnan namin ano yung mga processes, nilista namin yon. Nilista namin ano yung mga processes na dinadaanan, for example, ng document 1, ng document 2, ng document 3. And then after that, isa-isa, nag-work sampling kami para malaman kung ano yung mga value-adding and non-value-adding activities, value-added and non-value-added activities. At the same time, gumamit din kami ng mga routing sheets para malaman namin yung actual processing time. In the routing sheet, yung mga employees, they were asked, or we requested them to encode yung start time and end time sa pagpaprocess nila ng kung anong type of document and how many numbers of that, how many number ng document na yon. So from there, nakakuha kami ng mga information para ma-compute itong actual processing time and at the same time yung standard processing time. Of course, yung ibang mga bagay like yung mga allowance factor, yun ay hindi naman namin ma-observe sa mismong processes ng accounting office. So kami na yung nag-decide nun. Pinag-usapan na namin yun as a group. But the most important part is first to be familiar with the process, with all the processes within the office. Kasi doon mo malalaman, alin ba doon sa mga ginagawa yung magko-contribute significantly sa production or sa processing ng document at alin naman yung pwede nating i-eliminate. Kasi minsan, meron tayong mga hindi nakikita na processes which are redundant. Kumbaga ginagawa na siya sa process 1 and then gagawin na naman siya sa process 3. So, bilang IE, gusto sana natin makita yung mga ganong redundant processes and mapagsama na lang sila sa isang workstation. Kasi essentially, isa lang naman yung gusto nila maging output or isa lang naman yung gusto nila magawa.
Okay, thank you, Assistant Professor Revilla. So it was very enlightening to see how humans really play an important role, especially in your analysis. And while we are on the topic, we have also another question na related dun sa una pong tinanong sa inyo. So what was the decision-making process in determining the value-adding and non-value-adding activities? Because as we all know, it is a human system, so we cannot be as objective as we are when we are dealing with machines, for example, or robots, na meron talagang black and white, kumbaga, sa pag-assess or sa pag-decide. So ano po yung naging process niyo po doon?
So doon papasok yung paglilista namin na, so nung familiar na kami sa processes, general processes, doon papasok yung paglilista namin, as I mentioned, elemental tasks. So doon papasok yung paglilista namin ng mga elemental tasks. Now these elemental tasks, sila yung magko-contribute sa mga value-added na basic tasks doon sa mismong process. Kung alin man yung mga ma-observe namin later on, pag nalista na namin yun, na-confirm na namin sa mga employees na ito po ba nga yung mga task na talagang ginagawa nyo to contribute dun sa pag-process ng document. Pag nag-agree naman sila na yun nga, anything na ma-observe namin na nag-deviate, we can consider that as non-value added. So, of course, kino-confirm din namin yun sa employees. Yun actually yung medyo challenging na part, paano ka makikipag-deal sa mga employees. Kasi as much as possible, ayaw mong magmukhang minomonitor mo sila. Kasi of course, hindi naman eh. We are here to improve the system. We are here to help them and not judge their work. So to answer the question, dito makikita sa paglilista ng mga elemental tasks. So anything na nag-deviate dun sa listed and approved elemental tasks, we can consider that as non-value added.
Okay, thank you po, ma'am. So true to the fact na human system po ito, no, hindi po natin pwedeng baliwalain yung collaboration and interaction with the employees themselves dun po sa ating accounting office and cashier office. And then our next question, medyo leading po, so yun nga po, you mentioned that there were some challenges that you encountered. So as part of that, how was it dealing with the study, and what are some of the other challenges that you encountered, specifically with the fact that the employees within the offices can see that they were being observed? So in any way, was this has this affected the study, the people who conducted the study, or even possible behaviors of the people being studied?
Oo. Medyo naka-affect naman talaga siya. Nahirapan kami. As I mentioned earlier, naging challenge talaga yun. Lalo nung simula. Pero later on, na-observe namin na parang yung mga students natin, na sila kasi nag-data gathering, yung mga IE junior and senior students. Naging friends na sila dun sa mga employees. Kasi sa tingin ko, sa simula pa lang, we have to explain to them yung purpose talaga nung gagawin natin. We are not there to judge their work. Instead, we are there to determine, meron po ba kaming pwedeng maitulong dun sa existing processes na ginagawa nyo ngayon. And also, I would like to thank Ma'am Joanne Mendoza. Sobrang siya yung chief accountant during the period and she's very accommodating. She was very accommodating during that time. Na minsan kahit nahihirapan na kami or nagkakaroon na kami ng mga challenges, kumbaga tinutuloy lang niya na tulungan kami. So sa tingin ko, malaking factor din yon na open yung office sa suggestions ng ibang tao. So, yan, to answer the question, siguro, open communication lang. Ano ba talaga yung purpose ng ginagawa mo? Para makita nila na you are there to help them. You are there to ease their work and not to parang i-judge yung task nila or kung i-divulge yung mga ginagawa nila. No, you're not there to do that. You're actually there to help.
Yes po. So that's very nice to hear. A collaborative effort really does affect yung fruitfulness ng study, ng any study po. Okay? I'd just like to remind the audience that if you have any questions, you may use the chat box para po maipadala nyo po yung question. Pwede naman din po ako yung magtanong. Ayun po. Okay, so we have another question po, ma'am. So, we understand that the study was done in a face-to-face setup. And right now, we are under the new normal. So, in a nutshell, paano nyo po nakikita na mag-impact yung study in a remote setting wherein, kasi kanina po, very important yung office layout. We can see how time was of the essence, especially dun po sa traveling ng document. But within an electronic environment, in a remote setup, paano nyo po nakikita na magiging relevant yung study na ito?
Okay. Actually, itong study na ito, hindi na siya masyadong relevant sa ngayon kasi because of the information system that the university has, FMIS, yung Financial Management IS, and the HRIS. So, I think hindi nagaano, I think nako-compensate na nung system na yon yung mga sinuggest namin dito. Pero siguro dun sa question, I think the routing sheet may be effective. Pwede natin pagpalagyan ng time in or start time. For example, ako yung office 1, tapos sa'yo ko ibibigay next yung document. So sa akin, ilalagay ko kailan dumaan sa akin yung document. Parang document tracking, pero nayata tayo nun eh. Kailan dumating sa akin yung document, anong oras ko sa pinrocess, anong oras ko siya natapos, anong oras siya umalis sa office ko. Bibigay ko sa'yo, you will do the same. So from there, siguro makikita natin gaano katagal nagsistay sa office ko, gaano katagal nagsistay sa office mo. So, but the actual stopwatch time study, I don't think it's possible sa ganitong situation. Or maybe, siguro possible but very difficult.
Opo, kasi hindi na rin nga po ganun kadali yung face-to-face human interaction. But as we can see from what you said, still any improvement in the system can be done as long as we first understand kung ano po yung current setup. So I believe some parts of their study still have an impact or can have an impact or can be used as a basis po for any future studies na ma-apply po natin sa ating current situation. Ayun po. We also have another question. So, tinatanong po kung meron daw po ba tayong feedback of the previous system of DTS in accounting office and the problems encountered.
Can you ask that again? Feedback time?
Question po ay, meron po ba tayong feedback of from the previous system? I'm assuming this is feedback on the study of DTS in accounting office and any problems encountered.
May I ask what DTS is? DTS? Is it, Alan? DTS?
Yes po, DTS. Sige po, I'll send...
the document tracking system?
Yes, I think yun po yan.
Current document tracking system ng accounting office. As of now, wala akong idea dun sa document tracking system ng accounting office. From my last conversation with Ma'am Joanne, when I asked her kung okay lang i-present natin to and all, ito yung mga na-mention niyang recommendations natin na na-adapt ng accounting office. So, with regards to the document tracking system, yung feedback about it, wala akong na kuha pa.
Naku. Kahit po yung previous, ma'am, I think yun din po yung isa sa mga part ng tanong. Yung previous system, previous document tracking system in accounting office, and if there were any problems encountered within that system.
Before the study, is it?
Yes po.
Okay, so I'm not really familiar about it. Siguro meron din naman sila. Hindi ko masasabing meron, hindi ko masasabing wala. I'm not familiar about it, so hindi ko masagot yung question.
Okay po. Okay, so not a question, but rather a testimonial from one of the participants. So they mentioned that it was a truly big help with regards to the recommendation ng IE sa accounting office. But until now, madami pa din pong marami pa rin pong may mga concerns pa rin po na na-encounter. So, yun lang po, at sana daw po ma-implement yung ibang mga improvements na recommend previously, or in a way ma-adjust po to the current scenario. Ayun po. So we have another question. In line naman po with the Management Systems Engineering Program initiative of the department, so are there any current or future projects that are lined up? So ayun po, any news po on that?
Currently, wala pa. But from what I can see, sa future siguro yung pwede natin tingnan, kagaya ng na-mention mo kanina, since itong ginawa natin dito, hindi na siya mag-apply dahil hindi nga face-to-face yung nangyayari. Ano yung pwede natin gawin, give it the current setup? Yung ganong study, I think that will fall under the MSAP. On the other hand, sa HSEP naman, I believe there are some instruments, new instruments na na-purchase si Ma'am Kat at ang IED that we can use to further enhance yung capacity ng program natin na yun. So I think yung future, marami tayo pang pwedeng mga magawa.
Okay po, so that's good.
Currently wala.
Yes, but for sure, ano po, marami po yan lined up ahead, especially with the new resources po na provide po sa ating department. Okay, so I'd like to follow up the audience if you have any more questions. So I think we can accommodate one more question. Yan. So while we're waiting, I'd like to remind everyone that later on, after the webinar series, we'd like to request the participants to open their videos for the photo op. So yun lang, paalala lang po. Ayun, so we have, I think this will be our last question for this morning. So the question is, meron pong document tracking system ang UP Diliman. So sinubukan po ba natin itong i-review at i-apply sa UPLB? Kasi sabi po nila, in the future ay gagamitin ito ng buong system.
I think for that, meron ng document tracking system yung accounting kasi yun yung na-mention ni Ma'am Joanne na meron na sila nun ngayon. So maybe we are ina-adapt natin yon from UP Diliman or other system. So
Ayun po. Okay.
I'm not really familiar with the document tracking, so hindi ko siya masagot.
Okay. So ayun. Thank you po, ma'am. So I guess for that then, we were, from what I understand, the focus was more on the actual observation ng system kasi we understand that for human systems, really, there are differences there are some very minute and then some that are very significant when it comes to how the system interacts, especially how everyone within the system interacts. But it is still the goal to streamline, so it can be for further improvement din naman po. Ayun po. Okay, so I think that's all the time that we have for any questions. We would like to thank Assistant Professor Josefa Angeli Revilla for really shedding some light and discussing this study under the Management Systems Engineering Program of the Industrial Engineering Department ng CEAT UPLB. So as we can see, the focus really was on how we can improve how the system works for the humans within. So yun po. And then we'd also like to acknowledge the presence of our former Dean, Dr. Arnold Elepaño, and we'd like to thank the Dean's Office and the Industrial Engineering Department, for which this webinar series installment would not have been possible. So thank you very much for the support, for the support of the Socials Committee, as well of IED and of CEAT. Thank you as well to OIC Dean Dr. Myra Borines, and to everyone who was able to participate to this webinar series, to Assistant Professor Kathleen L. Baldoz as well for the opening remarks and for introducing us to the study itself. So as I have mentioned earlier, I'd like to request everyone to please open their videos para po sa ating photo opportunity. So, yun po. So we will go at this page per page sa ating Zoom Zoom application. So, yun po. Kung maaari lang po ay mag-smile po tayo for the duration, ano po, para naman po hindi kayo matimingan na baka po nakasimangot or baka po poker face. So yun po. So smile lang po tayo, ano. Bibigyan naman po tayo ng cue ng ating Dean's Office po para doon. So, sige po, ma'am.
Okay po. So, first page po muna tayo. 1, 2, 3. Second page po. Wala na. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3. And last page po. Okay po, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma'am Gallardo. And again, thank you to all 65 participants of today's installment of the CEAT webinar series. So just a reminder that tomorrow we will continue on with yet another unit within CEAT who will be discussing their own study. So again, given our current situation with the new normal, with the pandemic, maraming salamat pa rin po at nakapag-participate po kayo sa ating seminar today. So